Hey there, YouTubers. All right, so we're doing an unboxing video here. This is the Gigabyte B760m Gaming X AX DDR4 motherboard, LGA1700. This will support 12th and 13th gen CPUs. Now, good thing about this, why you might want to consider this over the B660m version, is that right out of the box, this will support 13th gen, all right, where you most likely will need a BIOS update for the B660M, and for that matter, all 600 series motherboards, because most of them are still shipping with older BIOS. Now, you may get lucky and find out that at some point, Amazon or Newegg is actually shipping these with updated BIOS. When that will happen is another story, right? So, usually 6 months to a year from the release of a new CPU do they update those older motherboards. But like I said, this one right out of the box is good to go. Let's take a look at the back. There'll be some details on here we'll see, but sometimes we don't always remember. So Wi-Fi 6 Echo, right? You see that, and there's a lot of light on this, so maybe we'll shut that off. We'll talk about the I/O section there. Let me zoom in here. I'm not going to be able to read any of this, but in case you were interested in that information. Power stages. You see 8+1+1 phases hybrid digital VRM. Fully covered MOSFET heatsinks and M.2 thermal. And this has the PCIe Easy Latch, which I've got to say, folks, is a huge improvement over what they previously had. You'll find if you're dealing with a monster graphics card like a 3090 or something bigger, that it can be a hassle to get that graphics card off a motherboard sometimes. And they have improved that design, and we'll take a look at it. Before we get to the motherboard, let's take a look at what's in the box. SATA cables, Wi-Fi antenna, and then these are what would appear to be all the 700 series, B760 series motherboards that you could purchase. Now, some of these will be a little more similar. The B760 Gaming X will be somewhat closer to one of the Aorus ones. The B760Ms, are shorter, right? So this is a micro ATX motherboard, and this also lists out some of the cheaper ones, and some of these I haven't even seen. I didn't know there's a D2H out there, so I might have to go find some more motherboards for the channels, folks. Like I said, antenna, SATA cables, and then there is only one M.2 screw in there. All right, so let's get our motherboard out. All right, while I'm doing this, getting it out of here, I'm going to have a lot of videos related to this, right? Because, hey, I got to get make my money back on this purchase somehow. And so that usually means a lot of videos related to it. What are those videos going to be? So we'll do one video where we do a macro view, which means we're going to get really up close and personal using the macro settings. So when it looks blurry like that, if you have a macro view set up on your camera, you can actually read all of the text. I will do an installation video on this, so we'll probably pick both the 12th and 13th gen CPU to put in here. I'll do benchmarks probably on both of them, to be honest with you. We will, like I said, do an installation. So we'll do the installation, we'll do the benchmarks. You may see one additional one in there where I, just get a new CPU cooler in, and so it just so happens this motherboard gets featured. We'll have a BIOS overview video. We will do 2 BIOS update videos, one through the BIOS, and then another using the BIOS update button itself. All right, so let's drop down a little bit. All right, so while I can remember these stats, PCIe 4.0 by 16. This is a PCIe by 4.0 by 4, right? So you want to put your good graphics card on here, assuming it's PCIe 4.0. Now you have M.2 here, another location here, right? This has the heatsink. That's most likely where you folks are going to want to put your operating system or whatever, you know. If you have two drives and one is faster than the other, let's say you have a Gen 3 and a Gen 4, you know, you may want to put the Gen 4 here, Gen 3 here, just because of that heatsink, even if the operating system's on the Gen 3, you know. So this is that little gizmo that's going to help you get your graphics card out. I got to tell you, it is definitely a good thing. And honestly, if I was to look at two motherboards, I might actually just pick this one, just based on that one feature. Over here, we've got the CMOS battery. So a lot of times, you know, you can pull the CMOS battery to basically reset your BIOS. And it doesn't completely reset it, but if you're having issues with, oh gee, I overclocked my RAM, usually that fixes that. However, this one has a, let's see, this should be the CMOS reset button here, and over here is your BIOS flashback button. So we will demonstrate a BIOS update using that. I don't know how many BIOSes are available for this at the moment. It may be that I can only do one BIOS update video and then have to wait on the other, but eventually we'll have both of them posted. All right. Now, they've included an M.2 screw in here, so this doesn't have the nice little gizmo that'll hold your M.2 in place. It just has the normal screw, which takes a little longer to, you know, get the M.2 in there, because you've got to be able to hold on to that screw, or, you know, if you have the right magnetic screwdriver, you'll be able to get it in there. But a lot of times the other companies have those nice devices that will swing around and lock your M.2 in without having to actually use a screwdriver. All right, over here, HD audio. We're just going to look at, you know, the stuff that most people care about. So you got HD audio in here. This is your ARGB, RGB. I'll skip over half of this crap. System fan header right here. Like I said, CMOS reset. And then this is your BIOS flashback button. USB 2.0, so you've got two of those on here. All right. Two SATAs that are vertical and two horizontal over here. Your front panel connectors are there. Let's see if I can bring that up closer. And then we are shooting with the Samsung S20 Ultra, right? So this thing has a ridiculous camera on it, but for whatever reason, it's, maybe we've got too much light. Something going on with it where it's having a little bit issue today, or it's just old. But you should be able to see the front panel connector descriptions. So you've got headers there for your HD, reset, power LED, and your power switch. And then, of course, over in this area, if you have the PC speaker, you'll plug that in over there. I'm about to sneeze, so. Alright, so hopefully I edited out my sneeze. And of course, our camera is getting loose on its mount. Never a dull moment here. Alright, so I think we've covered all of this stuff, Northbridge. So we should be good to rotate. Like I said, if you really want to see the features, check out the macro video. I will also compare this probably to at least 1, 2, who knows how many motherboards. It all depends on how long I keep this, whether it stays. So we've got at least a couple we can compare it to. USB 3.0 header, 3.2. So if you have on your case USB 3.0, 3.2s, that cable that comes from your case will plug in here. If your case has Type-C Charlie, on the front, you'll have a connector that will go into this port. All right. Now, what I'm not seeing is a lot of case fan headers. We've got one over here. But so far, just in this range, we've only had two. Of course, micro ATX, you don't have as many usually, but some of you might care about that aspect. All right, so here's your 24-pin ATX power connectors. Over in this area, we have ARGB, RGB, our 4 RAM slots. Of course, these are DDR4. You know, something that I don't remember as big a problem. A lot of motherboards recently I've been getting used off eBay. This was brand new, right? But I've been buying used ones. Have had a lot of bad RAM slots. So nothing I'm aware of with this motherboard or any issues. But if you plug in a RAM slot and you've got everything else perfect, make sure that you, and it doesn't boot up, I should say, make sure that you try the other RAM slots. Quite a few of these motherboards, these first two are bad, right? And that ends up leaving you with these two, and you can't run dual channel memory really. Now, of course, you can see the little note here. If you have a pair of RAM, they want you to use the light gray ones first, right? And then if you have 4, obviously you use all of them. All right, let's rotate this again. So, not the most impressive heat sinks, and obviously, you know, you'll see some better motherboards out there. But you know, this is like mid-range, right? Is this the best thing for something like an i9 13900 or 13900 KF? Probably not. You may want to spend a little bit more money on your motherboard. I would say though, if you don't want to overclock, i5 13600 KF, this is going to be fine. Any of the locked i7 and belows would be good. Probably not a good match for the i7 13700K either. That thing gets really hot, and personally, I think, you know, that's where you go spend some more money. Now, on 12th gen, those CPUs in comparison to 13th gen run a lot cooler. So I would honestly probably try any one of my 12th gens in here and probably not be that concerned. But until you actually look at the numbers, one doesn't know, right? So 1x8 CPU power connector here, right? You will see, obviously, on the better motherboards, you might see two 1x8s or a 1x8 and a 1x4. Now, of course, on those motherboards, you know, you don't necessarily need to plug both of them in unless you're going with a more powerful CPU. But in this case, you only got the 1x8, so nothing to worry about. Another fan header here. Here is your CPU fan header. All right, and I don't see anything else in that area. Now, of course, folks, this is where your CPU goes. Get this open, you're going to press down, pull that out that way, lift that up, and then boom. That's how you get that open. Now, leave this in until after you put your CPU in, then press this down, and that'll pop off. And assuming your CPU is seated well, you'll be able to drop that back in there, and then boom, lock that in. All right. Now, what do we have over here, folks? Where our I/O stuff is. Built-in I/O shield. All right, that's definitely a plus. So we can see 4 USB 2.0s, our Wi-Fi 6 Echo. We have a dedicated USB BIOS USB port here. 3 USB 3.2, I think these are Gen 1s. 2.5 gig LAN right here. And then we have mic, headphone, and line out. All right. So overall, folks, looks like a decent motherboard. You know, not really too much difference between this and the B660. I honestly don't think, you know, beyond the fact it comes with the updated BIOS and the B760 chipset, there's not a whole lot different. Maybe the Wi-Fi might be a little better. There might be a couple other things. Eventually, I will compare my B660 Gaming X. I have the full size one. We'll compare these two motherboards together so you can get an idea. But that's ATX versus micro ATX, so there'll be slight differences just because of the side. Other than that, folks, I think we've covered just about everything. You know, the price of this right now, Newegg $149. I think I paid $159. And depending on how much I like it, you know, we'll either have this for a month or two just to make all our videos, and then we'll move on to get something else in here. Thanks for checking out the video. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you.